Hey, part of what I love about podcasting is that we try to solve problems for people. And so we're going to look at some problems today with a guest by the name of James Hipkin. He's one of the pioneers in digital marketing. Hang on, right back.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Grampian Nation, welcome back. I'm excited today. Very often we get referred to as pioneers just because we've been around for a long time. But I really, truly do have a pioneer in the digital marketing business with me for 40 years. James Hipkin, you have been working on digital marketing. Is that a fact?
Well, not for 40 years. Digital marketing hasn't been around for 40 years, but
Okay.
I've been involved in marketing and advertising. I mean, from when I started, the internet didn't exist.
Yeah, same here, man. We really just put a poster up on ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I remember learning how the importance of page numbers because we made presentations, and 80% of your audience will not know what I'm talking about. We made presentations from what are called acetates.
Oh yeah.
Which were clear pieces of plastic that it had been printed on, that you put on an overhead
projector. Yeah.
Yep. I'm rushing to a client meeting where I'm supposed to make this presentation, and I tripped going up the stairs, and all my acetates spewed across the concrete floors in my client's office. And I learned the importance of page numbers.
Yeah. And so, folks, when you think about that, you think about doing a huge PowerPoint deck, except you have to hand do every page, and there's no animation and any colors because your markers were different colors.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a shout out to the folks who are let's say a little more seasoned in our audience, huh?
Yeah, a little more seasoned. That's a very generous way of putting it.
Yeah. So, but track record. You've had clients over this period of time that are huge companies: Nestle, Toyota, Sprint, Apple. A little company called Apple, the banking industry, Wells Fargo Online. So, I mean, you've done the tete-a-tete dance with some pretty major players.
Oh yes, and that's not even the complete list. I've been very fortunate in that I've had the opportunity to work in traditional consumer packaged goods advertising, with companies like Warner Lambert and Pillsbury.
Yeah.
And I've worked in tourism, with British Airways. I've worked in telecommunications with Sprint, and automotive with Audi and General Motors and Toyota.
Awesome.
And then the financial industry, Visa, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. I've been exposed to a lot of sectors and had some real interesting experiences.
Awesome. Coolest big customer. I mean, I love throwing these questions out because everybody's got kind of stories that parallel a long time, or coolest story, or coolest big customer that you worked with, or coolest big company project.
I think the one of the most interesting projects that I worked on was, when we received an RFP from a telecommunications company in Kansas City called Sprint.
Oh, that little company.
And when the RFP was for a loyalty program because their long distance division was really struggling with churn. And we literally almost turned it down because they were literally losing customers faster than they were gaining customers. But we pitched the business, and we were fortunate to win the assignment. And then we sat down with them, and I remember this conversation very well. Sitting with the market, and he says, "Okay, so what are we going to do?" And I said to him, "Well, for starters, you're spending too much money."
Oh wow!
And he pretty much just about fell off his chair.
Yeah, this meeting's now over. I'm a marketing guy, and you tell me I'm spending too much money. I
Right.
mean, that's absolutely contrary to what you should say according to the powers that be.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
but then of course he had to ask the question, why are you saying this?
yeah,
And I'm like, I'd be willing to bet that 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your customers.
okay,
Right now you're treating everybody equally. Everybody does not think of you equally. There's a
yeah,
small group of customers that are very important to you, and you are very important to them
hmm,
because they're heavy category users. They're the ones that really matter. The others, you aren't that important to them. They're not that important to you. And all the marketing, the best marketing in the world is not going to change a customer's need state.
yeah,
And that's an important thing to wrap your head around. That if a customer doesn't need what you're doing or doesn't have a big need for it, that's their reality.
oh yeah,
And one of my themes when I talk about marketing and help talk about getting people to think about marketing differently is this concept of inside out marketing
hmm,
versus outside in marketing.
sure,
Most businesses are practicing inside out marketing.
which
This is a
is,
this is akin to the business owner standing on his rooftop shouting at the world at large about how awesome they are,
yeah,
right? The world at large doesn't care. As opposed to outside in marketing, where you deeply understand who your best customer is, what's important to them, what's the journey that they go through to get from, I recognize I need this product, through research, consideration, prospecting, and then the final decision process. Each
hmm,
one of those steps in the journey, you know, fosters different questions and different obstacles that need to be overcome. If you're crafting your marketing to support the journey your best customer is on, every time you have a micro transaction with them, you're going to be building trust, building
mm,
relationship, and then the purchase stops being a sale,
uh-huh.
and that's the holy grail.
It's a response.
It is the next logical step in their journey,
Sure, sure. Does this
right?
apply then to small businesses as well?
Absolutely. These are principles I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
and principles are applicable regardless of the size of business.
Okay.
There's a principle I like to quote frequently. It's an old direct marketing axiom: get the right message to the right person at the right time.
Yeah.
you know and at the end of the day, marketing's not much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, but that is the underlying principle. And then thinking about who are your best customers, what are the 20% that are driving 80% of your sales. Your specific numbers will differ, but the concept, the Pareto's principle, is
10/90,
absolutely valid.
30/70 doesn't make any difference at all.
It's still
Most of
going
your revenue, most of your profit coming from one specific segment.
right. I remember doing work with a large bank where we showed them that, you know, 5% of their customers were delivering 100% of their profits.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know,
That means you're working hard with a whole bunch of people who aren't doing anything for you.
right. Well, this is the God bless free checking, right?
Yeah.
You you go out and attract a whole bunch of customers, telling them they don't have to pay anything. It's going to be really hard to keep that business profitable,
Yeah. No kidding, right?
right? And
So,
then circling back to the Sprint story,
mhm,
we analyzed their customer base, and yes, in fact, the 80/20 principle did apply. We isolated that 20%. We built programs to support those customers. Took about a year to put the whole thing in place. I mean, it was a big business. It was
oh yeah.
$2 billion base of business. And so we ran the program through the first year, which was the second year of our relationship with Sprint.
Mhm.
And I sat down with the marketing director. So how are we doing? At the end of the second year. And he said, I've generated 20% revenue growth on a $2 billion base of business. I haven't changed market share.
Wow. Wow.
Those best customers, there's 5 different ways that they contribute revenue to the business. They are so important. And that whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or even a Fortune 100, or in the case of Sprint, when I was working with them, they were a Fortune 50 company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a fundamental principle that's going to apply. And,
Yeah.
it's what allows your marketing to stop contributing to the noise and start breaking through the noise and becoming relevant and engaging for the people who actually matter to your
Yeah.
business.
I've got my next book coming out is Management by Cliche, and some of those cliches that come to mind are so relevant here. One that's in the second version of this will be dance with who brung you.
I'm sorry,
It's
which?
dance with who brung you,
Yeah,
because really those customers that built your business are the ones you really ought to be paying attention to. I mean, what you're
exactly.
saying is so no nonsense. Is that your approach, basically, with
Oh, yeah,
marketing, even digital marketing?
absolutely. And digital marketing, we've got, okay, think, what is a marketing plan, right? I like to use the marketing plan is a 3-legged stool.
Uh huh.
And that a 3-legged stool has 4 parts. There's the seat and 3 legs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
The seat is your objective.
Uh huh.
Do you have one,
Yeah.
right? And
Great
is it a
question.
smart objective?
Yeah.
And then you've got first leg is your marketing strategy. And that's the who and the why. And that comes from your customer avatar.
Okay.
The second leg is the marketing plan. That's the how and the when. And that comes from the buyer's journey map.
Okay.
The third leg is measurement.
Oh.
Are you measuring everything that you're doing so that you know what's working and what's not working?
Yeah. In today's world, marketing KPIs, right?
Well, and just be careful that the KPIs are real and not vanity metrics.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
likes
Exactly.
and followers are vanity metrics. They
Yeah.
don't mean
Sure.
anything. I would much rather have 20 people who are heavy category users engaged with me than 2,000 people who are light category users.
Yeah. Dollars instead of wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you focus a lot now on people's website messaging. And
Mm-hmm.
some people would say that websites are like, so, 2000. What would you tell them?
Well, I'll tell you, websites, the way a lot of people use them are 2000. But if you think of the website as being the hub in your digital marketing program, because the reality is, where does a customer go to check somebody out that they've heard about?
Yeah.
They're going to go to the website,
That's the first place, probably. Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
And so this begs a question I'll ask a business owner. So tell me the primary objective of your website.
Inform, educate, I would guess. I mean,
Well,
that
more
would be
often
the,
than not, they settle on conversion.
okay.
It's almost always wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So
The
what should it be? Help me out here, bud.
Yeah, well, think about if you're thinking about it from the outside in, you're thinking about how does the website fit into the buyer's journey. When the buyer arrives at the website, they've probably heard about you through social media or a reference or some other means.
Uh-huh.
They get to the website and they're looking for confirmation that you understand their problem,
Okay.
confirmation that you have a viable solution for their problem, confirmation that your viable solution is believable.
Okay.
That's a lot of things that happen before conversion.
Yeah.
And if you're shouting at them about buy now, click here,
Yeah.
before they're ready, Well, what happens if you meet somebody and you start ordering them around
It's a
before you have
turnoff, man. It is a turnoff. Yeah,
it
you're
is
going
a
to click
turnoff.
out quick.
Right. I'll give you your. This may be a chapter in your next book. I've been trying to. I'm trying to convince the world to stop saying call to action.
Uh,
Right. Everybody's
no
been told
kidding.
from the beginning of time you have to have a call to action. But think about it. A call to action is a marketer shouting at a customer and telling them what to do.
Yeah. Buy here,
Customers
buy
don't want
now.
to be shouted at. They don't want to be told what to do. What I suggest is you start thinking in terms of creating people like you pathways.
Uh-huh.
And a people like you pathway calls out to subsegments in your audience and invites them to follow this pathway to learn more about what's really going to matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, functionally, a people like you pathway and a call to action are exactly the same thing.
Delivery.
Functionally, it's a button that you click on. But the mindset shift is really important. A call to action is inside out marketing. A people like you pathway is outside in marketing.
Yeah.
And when somebody clicks on that button, two very powerful things have happened. They've told you exactly who they are. And more important than that, they've given you permission to give them more information. And if you pay that off by having a landing page at the other side of that button that recognizes who you're talking to and gives them the information that they're going to need because you know who they are, that's a really valuable experience that the customer
Sure.
has just had with you, which builds trust, builds relationship. It's so powerful.
Awesome. So, can you relate that to a small business now? Because we've got lots of big businesses who listen to this
Yep.
in the in the construction, the wireless sector, but we've also got some small businesses, and small businesses are cool because they have problems that are exactly the same complexity as big businesses. They're
Right.
just more personal, and you
Right.
see quicker results because the small business owners tend to listen a little better. So,
Well, maybe, but I
yeah.
mean, I'll give you a specific example. We have had a client for a while who came to us, and somebody else had designed their website, and we were just hosting and maintaining it for them. And they're a flour mill. They
Hmm.
do stone ground organic flour, very high quality. Top chefs use their products, really high quality product.
All right, give them a plug here. Who's the company name?
The company is Early Bird Farm and Mill.
All right, Early Bird Farm and Mill, man. We love stone ground organic flour. And
Right.
what problem did they have, and how did you solve it?
Well, their problem was, with all respect, because they're absolutely lovely people, but they knew about as much about marketing as a bag of rocks.
Or a bag of flour?
And they make a great product, but they had absolutely no idea what to do with it or how
Oh,
to get
wow.
the message out. Or their website was all over the map. It was all inside out. So we took over their marketing. We redesigned their website. We identified the two most important subsegments for them, which were beginner bakers and artisan bakers.
Okay,
We
makes sense.
created we created pathways for both on the homepage. We redid their marketing. We got them out of this. We put measurement in place. We stopped doing the stuff that wasn't working. We
Uh-huh.
started doing more of the stuff that was working. I know it's a pretty shocking statement, but it truly wasn't that much more complicated than that. We started introducing. They had not been in Pinterest at all. Pinterest is the only social media platform that rewards link clicks,
Wow.
and people in Pinterest are always looking for recipes. We built out their recipe blog.
Interesting.
We launched the whole new program in January, and within a few months, they're closing in on 200% increase in sales
Wow.
versus year ago.
So you're serving the customer, you're serving the client, the potential client, the customer with information
Right,
and with what they're looking for.
right.
Is that accurate?
That's it. And then
Yeah.
building relationships, giving them reasons to try the product, and the impact has been significant
All
and quick,
right.
and it didn't take
Yeah.
long.
And the beautiful part about solving problems like that is like you're helping people
Mm-hmm.
build a business, build jobs in a local community.
Mm-hmm.
You're helping them. I mean, you're helping families because
Right.
mom or dad is still going to work and they're still getting paid. That's a
Yep.
beautiful thing. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
marketing ain't evil after all, is it?
well, this is one of my little soapboxes here is that, I do a talk, the non-icky marketing funnel, right? People get, ooh, marketing, ooh,
Uh,
yeah. It's all so icky.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be. If you're thinking about it in terms of the customer and what they're looking for, what's the problem they're dealing with, what's the transformation they're hoping to achieve, where are they in their journey,
mm,
and you're speaking to them about relevant topics and in a relevant way. Like, let's talk about SEO for just a second.
okay. Search
In
engine optimization.
search engine optimization,
Okay,
lots of people think they should be doing it, and I'm a bit controversial here. Most businesses shouldn't be doing SEO.
okay,
You're competing with huge brands, huge websites. It's very difficult to rank. It's a long game, very expensive. However, the principles behind keyword research can still be applied.
uh huh,
So if you're doing keyword research and you're finding informational keywords are, as the name suggests, keywords people use when they're searching for information. That's
yeah,
an upper mid-level funnel kind of exercise. So
yeah,
you can use that keyword research to start understanding what topics you should be creating content around.
yeah. Narrow the niche.
Commercial intent keywords are lower mid funnel. Now I'm prospecting. Now I'm trying to make a decision. That's where you get, review content,
Uh huh.
comparison content, that sort of thing. Commercial keyword search intent keywords. And then transactional search intent keywords are, I'm ready to buy something. You need to craft your marketing so that it's in alignment with these sorts of things. Whether
Yeah,
you rank on Google
yeah,
is irrelevant. If you can build your marketing around these ideas, you're going to be creating messaging that's going to resonate with people where they are in their journey,
yeah.
using the words and phrases that they're searching for.
Right on. So, if you had a business that came to you, and they have obviously lots of small businesses have limited funds, like you get one tactic, you get like one thing you can fix. What do you do?
Well, the first thing we do is put in measurement because
Okay.
almost always they're not measuring anything.
Okay.
So, first thing we do is we let the data tell us. We don't rely on opinion, our opinion, the client's opinion. We don't rely on opinion. We rely on data.
Okay. How do you gather that data?
Well, there's a simple concept called a UTM code. And that's if you've seen URLs and there's a question mark and then there's a whole bunch of crap after the question mark,
Uh huh.
right? That's a tracking pixel.
Okay.
And UTM codes are a form of tracking pixel. And if you add UTM codes to all of your links, then
You
your
find out
Google
where the people are
Analytics,
coming from.
Google Analytics will be able to separate that traffic out, and you'll be able to look at that traffic uniquely and
Hmm.
how much time do they spend on the site? What pages do they go to? Right?
What are they interested in?
What are they interested in?
Yeah.
And then, but most importantly, I mean, we had a client came to us and they were investing a boatload of money on YouTube. And I like YouTube. YouTube's an excellent channel for a lot of people.
Uh huh.
But when we put the tracking in place, less than 1% of their traffic was coming from YouTube.
Wow.
Now, you have to step back and go, it's not the wrong medium, or is the execution bad? So there are nuances to this conversation,
Sure.
but you're having the conversation based on real data.
Hmm.
And you've got a means to measure, okay, we're going to tweak this, because we believe that YouTube's a good channel for us. We're going to make a few adjustments. The SEO conversation we just had, right? Make a few adjustments, focus in on some other things, and let's see if it has any impact.
Hmm.
So measurement is the third leg in the three-legged
Yeah.
stool. And it is so important because it's what keeps everything balanced.
All right. So when you look at people's websites, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's got to be like, you know how there's best practices?
Mm-hmm.
There's also worst practices.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us some stories about where you brought up this, and don't give us company names here, but you brought up this website and you were like, oh my gosh, this is the most common mistake that people make.
Well, there's the whole inside out, outside in. My ability to articulate that came from looking at literally thousands of websites, because it is so common
Okay.
in websites for people to be talking about features and attributes, and we've been around for 20 years, and we have 3 factories and all this stuff,
The
right?
search for credibility.
Right. And that's not what people are looking for. People are looking for solutions to their problems.
Yeah.
Your credentials are important, but they're important from the point of view of reasons to believe. Remember the hierarchy I described before.
Sure.
Do you understand my problem? Do you have a viable solution for my problem? And is that solution believable?
Mm-hmm.
So much of this is about balance. There's another factor that people, and this is even more common, oddly enough, with bigger businesses. You've got like 6 seconds or less to engage a visitor to your website.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. So, folks, this is kind of funny because the name of his website is 6secondsorless.com. Is that right? Is that get it right?
That's
www.6secondsorless.com.
That's where you can go to book a free audit of your homepage, and we'll have a conversation around what's working and what's not working.
All right, I'm going to help you here. Nothing's free. It's a no-cost audit. Cost you nothing. Cost Jim more than 6 seconds.
Yes.
Cost James more than 6 seconds.
There you go.
But
the thing is that the 6 seconds doesn't start when the page loads.
Okay.
It starts when the page is asked for.
Oh my. You better have a fast online service. You better load
Your
quickly.
homepage should be loading in a second or less.
Oh wow.
And if it's not, you've got a problem.
Okay.
And this is very common with bigger sites and bigger corporations, because they've got budget and they've hired designers and they've done all this fancy stuff.
Oh, video and graphics and blah,
stuff.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
It's
hurting them. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's hurting them.
So it should load in a second. So when you click on it, you've got a second to be on the screen.
Yep.
That's really
or less.
Or less. Okay.
Okay.
Where did the number, the 6 seconds, actually come from? Is that empirical data, or is that like, hey, if you don't get them in 6 seconds, they're going to give you the boot?
It's good copywriting.
Okay.
6 ways to engage website visitors in 6 seconds or less.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds. The point is you don't have very much time.
Yeah, time is now your enemy.
Right.
Okay.
And then the second factor that people often miss out on is, particularly this is common with bigger websites, because they've got budget and they've hired designers and it's all very fancy.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know that they're in the right place. So does the page load quickly? And am I in the right place? You want that to be instantaneous.
How do you get that message through?
Well, that's about consistency. That's about, if they're searching for Jim Tracy because they've heard about Jim Tracy and they get to a website and Jim Tracy's name, that name is not anywhere on the website because it's some
Gotcha.
fancy name and a expensive logo that you spent too much money creating.
Yeah.
They're like, am I in the right place? Things like a lot of this is subtle, but color palette. Are you using the same color palette in your social media and your emails as you are on your website?
Yeah.
Are you using the same fonts as you are on the website?
Dude, you're making me feel really smart. Maybe I'm just really, thejimtracy.com.
There you go. But people lose track of this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the third thing is give them a benefit-oriented reason to stay. And that's the conversation we had earlier about lead with their problem,
Okay. So
right?
give us an example of when you pop onto a website and they do a really good job of, number one, identifying themselves, and number two, solving the big problem that the 20% of the people with 80% of the revenue clicked it for.
Right.
What does
And
that look like?
then you've got a person who's engaged with you. They're willing to put the time into the site.
Yeah.
The next thing is, testimonials. Okay, I want everybody who's listening today to think about their website and do you have a carousel of testimonials parked at the bottom of your homepage?
Yeah.
Chances are pretty good you do. It's a complete waste of real estate.
Really?
One powerful testimonial that's really relevant to the audience you're trying to attract, high up on the page, that can provide social proof, reason to believe that your solution is viable, is much more important than having 6 testimonials that nobody reads in a carousel that nobody looks at the bottom of the page.
Yeah. So in essence, you're de-risking their visit.
That's right.
Through somebody else's testimonial.
We are supporting the process that they go through in their mind in terms of, the fast page load speed is a trust event. If a site loads slowly, you start to wonder about that business.
Yeah. No, I get it. I agree completely.
All these things are all trust events. And you're supporting the journey that they are on, and then make their pathway clear.
Wow.
Don't make them dig through the homepage to try to figure out what's important to them. Yeah. Call out to them, people like you, pathways.
Got it.
Call out to the audience, invite them to follow a button.
Like, the most important part of that is just knowing who your customer is, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That having a good, robust avatar of your best customer and having a buyer's journey map informs, because like I said, the other 2 legs on the stool, the marketing strategy is the who and the why, and that comes from the avatar. And the marketing plan is the how and the when, and that comes from the journey map.
All right. So we're going to land this airplane, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit about social media, because social media is not marketing. It is supplementary information that's proffered out onto a wide, like a mile wide, an inch thick versus a narrow niche. And so why is that effective I'm sorry?
Getting more so.
And getting more. Yeah, for sure. So, but it is necessary, however. Talk to us about the why.
Okay. Social media can be very useful. It's about choosing the right platforms. That's where measurement gets involved. But it's also about recognizing the nature of social media. If you're all caught up in vanity metrics around how many followers you have and how, all that stuff, the simple reality is you create content in social media and you're lucky if 10% of your followers actually see it. The social media platforms are businesses and they're trying to get you to start paying for ads. Now, social media can be very useful. It's a great testing environment. We will often use it for testing. If we're trying to test 2 different campaign lines, we'll use social media to see which one generates the most engagement.
Yeah.
And then we'll take the one that generates the most engagement and we'll start building out a paid campaign that uses that line.
Yeah.
So it can be very useful in that regard.
More of a refining tool.
More of a refining tool. It can be very useful if you're, have your things integrated. Like, for example, the website is the hub.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get people to come to the website, then remarketing based on pixels from the website
Yeah.
can be a very effective way to reach the right audience.
Click through. Yeah.
And so social media has a role, but it needs to be done and thought about in the context of the larger plan. Who's your audience? What's their journey? And how do you bring value to them? The other risk that you run with social media is building your business on rented land.
Uh-huh.
You don't own the platform. In many cases, you don't even own the customer.
Yeah.
And they can change the rules and do change the rules. And they're not going to call you up and ask you if it's okay.
Yeah, no kidding. No, we learned that the hard way, man. We at the Grampian we got a little bit of shutdown by our friends at YouTube. So
Right.
it's really a rented room, right?
Yeah. And you want to be careful. And this concept applies to lots of different things, like the teaching platforms, Teachable
Mm-hmm.
and Kajabi and all those teaching
Yeah.
platforms, e-commerce, Etsy. You don't own
Yeah.
the customers over there; they own the customers.
Yeah.
There was a year and a half ago, there was an Etsy competitor called Jane.com that went out of business the weekend before Black Friday
Oh
and
my.
left their creators owed millions of dollars.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Yeah. Careful who you hang out with.
So you've got to be really careful. You want to make sure in the digital marketing world, there are only two assets you own:
Mm-hmm.
your website and your email list.
There you go.
So
And you better have them backed up.
work really hard on using the spokes, which are the media channels, to draw people back to the website, get
Yeah.
them on your email list, because regardless of what Facebook or Meta or whomever decides to do, you'll always have your email list.
So, how many spokes are there in a really truly effective digital media
Usually less
environment?
than people think,
Okay.
because it's about measurement and understanding what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
But your website is the hub. Email marketing is almost always going to be an important spoke, and
Okay.
particularly for businesses with long purchase cycles.
Okay. Sure.
Because the thing is, even if they don't open the email, they still see the subject line and the preview text. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you the number of times I haven't heard from somebody in 18 months, and then they turn around and contact us, and I'll say, what prompted this? Well, I saw your email.
There you go.
They didn't open the email, but it just
Yeah.
reminded them of their positive experience with us.
Yeah. That's
Right?
really cool.
And when they were ready, because like I said at the very, very beginning of this, the best marketing in the world is not going to change a customer's need state.
Right.
When they're ready, they're ready. And you want to be there. Email marketing is a good way to do that.
All right. Well, at the Grampian, James, we have a habit of asking the same question as we land the airplane. And most of our guests have lived a big life. You have lived a big life, sir. And we would like to know, who is one of the champions that affected you in such a significant way that you would like to give them a shout out?
He's passed away now. Dr. Stephen Epley. He was a market researcher that we hired to help us understand loyalty when we were working on the assignment with Sprint. And he did and he specialized in loyalty research. That was his area of specialty. And I don't remember the output of the research study, but I remember one sentence that he said in the preamble that has informed so much of what I've done in my career subsequent to this. He said, in his experience, 90% of loyalty problems can be traced to a flawed sales process.
Wow. No kidding.
There's a
No
lot to
kidding.
unpack in that simple sentence.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's so much of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about journeys and supporting and understanding this is all about improving the sales process so that it contributes to the relationship.
Perfect. Perfect description. Salesmen are problem solvers, man. And the sales process has to solve problems as well. So if you would like, Grampian Nation, if you would like a no-cost review of your website, go to 6secondsorless.com. James Hipkin, thank you so much for coming on the Grampian. We appreciate you, sir. Any closing advice for our audience?
Just have no fear. It's as long as you're being true to who you are and true to what your best customers are looking for, you're going to be fine.
All right. Well, until next time, you keep chasing your Grampian dreams. This is Jim, and I am out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.